Okay, folks, we're going to start the Hopkinton Town Council meeting of April 1st, 2013, with a call to order and a moment of silent meditation and salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. First on the agenda is the consent agenda to approve the Town Council meeting minutes of March 4th, 2013. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll pull the minutes of March, or just...
Fourth? If you allow me to, Councilor Hurst contacted me today to let me know that on page 8 of those minutes, Ashton Ferry was left off, so I have amended the minutes and I have included Ashton and Ferry in it, along with Glenna Crowell and Alton Ferry.
I make a motion to approve the Town Council meeting minutes of March 4th, 2013 with the addendum.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. First public forum. Anyone out there? Mr. Buck? Oh, no. Wish to speak. Okay, next up is Mr. McGarry, Town Manager's Report.
Thank you. During the third week in March, I drafted an RFP for professional engineering and related services, and that was to select a consultant to serve as the town's on-call engineer on work projects commencing on or after July 1st of this year through June 30th of 2016, a 3-year period which may be extended for one additional year at the discretion of the town. The advertisement is due on April 7th, and bids are going to be opened on May 10th at 2:00 p.m. in the Town Hall Council Chambers. And once they're opened, Planner Jim Lamphere, Clerk Linda St. Amour, and myself will review the submitted bids and forward the recommendation to the Town Council at a later date. Also, March 19th, the town received reimbursement of $23,066.10 from FEMA for costs related to Superstorm Sandy. It's just a special thanks to Laura Kenyon, our Finance Director, for organizing that reimbursement package. March 22nd, the Governor announced that the feds had approved Rhode Island's request for a disaster declaration and for public assistance. Our estimated town costs are between $70,000 and $75,000 for the historic blizzard of 2013. And as you may recall, the town declared a local state of emergency. Governor Chafee declared a state declaration of emergency. And now that the federal government has done so, we're eligible for those reimbursements at a rate of about 75%. And lastly, March 27th, I conducted the first meeting of the Townwide Job Description Committee in the Hopkinton Police Department conference room. And the purpose of this committee is to review the existing job descriptions and develop job descriptions for other full-time and some part-time positions in Hopkinton. Serving voluntarily on this committee are Captain Mark Carrier, Dave Caswell from DPW, Linda St. Amour from Planning, Sherry Desjardins from Building and Zoning, Kim Wheeler from Recreation, and myself, and that's an ongoing project.
Okay,
Thank
any
you.
questions for Bill, folks?
I have one.
Yes.
Kim Wheeler, what does she do at the rec department?
She's a full-time recreation clerk.
Oh, okay.
Okay, anything else, guys? Okay, actually, next on the agenda is, first item, there's actually 6 items under new business. The first is which is to consider and vote on a land trust request for abatement of taxes on 2 parcels, map 8, lot 33 at Woodville Road for $932.18, and map 4, lot 121DD at Cedar Knoll Drive for $3,324.67. Now, I just want to make sure that, I know it was in our packet, everybody read the packet. Going forward, from the date of sale forward is where the abatement should take place, unless otherwise specified. So I guess we'll start with, Scott, do you have any questions on the abatement?
All I want to do is, I won't get into detail, but I'd like to thank our solicitor for her advice on this matter. And I think the thing with abatements and how they're handled probably should be a little different. That we have to make sure that when we get land, that people aren't trying to avoid their back taxes. So I think that's a lesson learned, but I'm really appreciative of what our solicitor's done on this. I continually to be pleased with the land trust, but I think on this issue, a lesson was learned. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Sylvia?
Two issues. One of them is, and I talked to the solicitor a couple of minutes before the meeting. First of all, there's money owed prior to the closing on the Poloni property, less than $1,000. And the land trust is asking us to abate that also. There's also, there were taxes due on the other property, but they're paid up, I understand?
Right.
That's in full. So the only one left is the Poloni property. We have an ordinance that allows anything going forward from the date of their purchase or their closing, that it's automatically abated. So there are two things. We can reaffirm that by a vote that we approve the abatement going forward at the time of the closing. And we can also make it clear to them that taxes owed prior to that are the responsibility of the land trust. And we're not going to abate monies prior to that. Now, so actually, the motion you had, that we talked about was a motion to abate the taxes going forward. But the ordinance does that.
You know, for some reason, and this might have to do with record keeping more than anything else, the practice of the council, ever since I've been here, is to require abatements for the land trust and for organizations like the big
Conservation?
thing,
Conservation.
Nature Conservancy, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Even though the Nature Conservancy stuff is exempt too, but it's been the practice of the council to require them to come on a yearly basis and ask for the exemption.
Oh.
Like I said, it might be, it's not necessary, unless it's a necessary, it might be necessary from Rita's end, I don't know. I mean, from a record-keeping standpoint,
Okay.
that the taxes be
It doesn't
abated.
hurt anything.
No, and the fact is, it is automatically abated, Sylvia, yes, you are correct. But the practice of the council has been to ask people to come and request the abatement on an annual basis.
Well, I'll move that the town abate the taxes for the Poloni property from the date of the Hopkinton Land Trust purchase.
Seconded.
Okay, we hear from other two councils here. Barbara?
I'm interested in separating these two, the map 8, lot 33, Woodville Road request, and map 4, lot 121 DD at Cedar Knoll Drive. I'd like to separate those into two different votes, so we just keep them separate. My understanding on map 8 with the 932.18 is that those taxes have already been paid. They're not in arrears, and it can go forward from here with the land trust. So we're not abating the 932, they've paid it. And map 4, lot 121, which is the one I believe Sylvia is talking about, says it's for $3,324.67. And I'm not clear about, Sylvia, what you had said about an extra 1,000 or something. I don't know what you're talking about.
Let me
Because
clarify something.
Just my understanding is that that one, the $3,324 may still not have been paid.
Okay, when I made the motion, it was to, as you had asked, to separate them out. And the Poloni property is the 932.18 property. That's map 8, lot 33, Woodville Road is the Poloni property, just so you'll know. So the motion I made was to abate the taxes on that one after the closing, and then we'll need another one for the other one.
And that money has not been paid for, or at least, Rita, that's correct, right? The 932, whatever, has not been paid at this point.
That's correct, that's the
Okay.
balance after the payment.
Right, so that's still owed, Barbara.
And that's
That was
owed
free.
after the land trust took the property.
It was,
Correct.
it was prior owner taxes. Those are prior owner taxes. So when they closed on the property,
Uh-huh.
they knew that not quite that exact figure, but they knew there was going to be a figure in the $900 area that the prior owner was going to owe for the first quarter before they took ownership.
So we are
So they
not,
got a credit for that at
Right.
the closing so that they could pay it.
so we're not abating the 932.18.
Correct. They're asking you to,
Well-
let me be clear, they're asking you to, but those were prior owner taxes.
But because of what Sylvia has said, and it is the truth that we abate them going forward, why don't we just not abate the 932.18 and leave it alone? They
That's
have
what
to-
my
That was her
motion is.
Yep, that was her motion.
Right, but I mean,
That is my motion. That I abate it
Yes,
after
one
the
second.
time of closing, so it's not
Rita's-
prior.
Rita's shaking her head, maybe I said something
Okay,
wrong.
Rita, come to the podium, please. hon.
Thought I had
oh,
it
we don't
straight.
need to make a motion about abating after it already happened.
Hi, the 932.18 is actually the SCAT Foundation.
It is SCAT.
That's the one that's the balance that's left after the payment was made during the transaction. So that part is what the land trust owns now, and that's what they want that part to be
Oh,
abated.
so it's not the Poloni
It's not
property?
Poloni, it's SCAT.
Oh,
yeah.
okay,
No,
all right.
the other
Then I'd
one,
like to withdraw my motion.
Yeah.
I'll withdraw my second.
Fine.
Okay,
Okay. that
Then,
makes more sense.
all right, so the Knoll, Woodville Road is the SCAT.
correct. Map
Okay,
8, lot
foundation.
33.
The SCAT Foundation is the 932.
Correct.
So Poloni's the one that's fully paid, Rita.
Thank you.
Is that right?
no, Poloni is the one that's not paid at all.
It's not paid.
But that was for, let me be more specific, the prior owner taxes on Poloni.
The Poloni from Knoll Drive tax was $3,324.67.
Right.
But none of that is prior owner, that's all land trust, correct?
No, that's not my understanding. My understanding is that at the closing, the land trust was credited $879.70. That payment on Poloni,
Okay, that's what I just said, so
Right.
I did have it right. So on Poloni,
right.
they were credited the 8 whatever.
7970.
Yes,
Right.
and that's owed.
That's
Prior
correct.
owner
That's-
taxes are-
that's
okay, I
correct.
have
All
it.
right, so my motion was
Your motion was
correct.
fine.
After, when I started discussing it, I mixed up the addresses.
Names.
All right, why don't we deal with Poloni first, since we now have that straight.
All right,
and then
so
we'll
I'll
deal
go
with
back to
Scott.
my original motion, which was to, would you state the one I pulled again, please? 'Cause
Made
it-
motion to abate the taxes on the Poloni property from
the date of the closing.
the date of the Hopkinton Land Trust.
Thank you.
purchase.
I'll motion that
Second.
again.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
And I just want to be sure that on the Poloni property, which is map 4, lot 121 DD, that's the one you just made the motion on, right?
Correct, yep.
The 87970 is still, that was credited at closing to the land trust, and they in turn, have you sent out a bill for that?
Yes, we have.
Okay,
But they have not paid it.
okay. All right, motion's made and seconded, I guess, on the Poloni. Any other further discussion on Poloni parcel abatement?
Yeah, Frank, I'd like to know, why on this page right here from Marilyn Grant to yourself, it says that the tax on Cedar Knoll Drive is $3,324.67, yet on this page, 2 pages hence, the figure is $3,427.35.
Yeah.
Which figure is correct?
Yeah, that's a good question. I looked at the tax roll. Rita, it looks like,
Because it has not been paid, interest accrues on it,
okay.
so that's the difference, the interest
Okay.
that's accruing. So
Okay.
what you're looking at to abate is just the principal, not the interest. So it would be that, so if I'm hearing you correctly, I'm going to, whenever this process is, the abatement is going to be on the net of the difference, and then it will still send a bill to the land trust for the $879.70.
Correct.
Correct.
Right.
All right, so a motion's been made, seconded. We've had discussion. Any further discussion on Poloni parcel abatement? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next
So
we'll
we'll
tackle the SCAT, which is more straightforward.
Move that we abate the taxes on the SCAT fund, that was formerly the SCAT Foundation property, and now is the property of the Hopkinton Land Trust, and that amount be abated from the date of the closing forward.
Correct.
Right.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion on that abatement?
So we're clear that that one is, the land trust gets the entire thing abated.
Yeah, that's just like at the 1/4, I guess, is basically.
They'll get whatever amount is owed from the closing on, whatever that amount is,
So
whatever
that
the...
is more straightforward.
That's fine.
Yep.
All right, that's fine, thank you.
Okay. Yep. So motion made and seconded. Any further discussion on the SCAT Foundation abatement? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Yes, Tom?
Oh, you can hear her back there mumbling?
Yeah, I hear her. Just FYI, in the 6 years I was on the council, we've abated a number of properties over the course of time, and now we're doing it again. Since the land trust has been formed, is there any record as to how much revenue we've lost by abating all these taxes of all these properties? Is there any way to find that
I'm
out?
sure they could, right?
It was just something I was thinking about as we were going over. 3,000 here and another 900, so you've lost close to $4,000 in revenue on these two properties. It was just,
I'm sure we could figure it out. Rita could get something together, I guess, at some point.
But then we'd also have to do it for all of the properties, and maybe it's
Arcadia
over
management, everything.
Exactly. for
well, how long,
5 or 10
I
years back.
was just thinking of the land trust, that was all, because,
But even if you go land trust, you should go back to the beginning of land trust. It's something to remember that when we take something off the tax rolls, we are actually spreading that money among all the citizens.
that's exactly,
So
that's
I
correct.
think it's a very good idea.
It was just curious.
It's a lot of money, I'm sure.
I'm sure it is, once it adds up.
Yep, thank you, Tom. Okay. Next, under new business, is something very near and dear to our hearts, which is a council comments discussion regarding the proposed Chariho Regional School District budget. I just wanted to kind of preface this item with just a couple quick comments. Chariho's budget from last year to this year is up about 1.4%. We did get some extra revenue from the Career and Technical State reimbursement that helped us out a little bit, about 6 cents off of our mill rate, which was great. I've got some comments on the specific budget that I'll wait till the end. I'm sure probably no one picked my items. But let's kind of delve into it, and what I'm going to do is try and get some common themes, I guess if there are any, from everyone, just to kind of get it down and so we can, so I can know what the heck we're talking about and see if there's any common themes. If there isn't, then that's fine too, but, and then if you, because I know it's going to be tempting to chime in when we each bring up hot button topics, potentially, just write them down, and then when you're coming up next to speak, just, say them, yeah. So now I'm going to go to my left and start with Mr. Husband.
You're looking for things that I've questions about the budget, is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, any concerns? We've got the budget vote coming up April 9th, townwide.
Well,
and,
I'd certainly like to talk to Mr. Ritchie about the computer idea to provide students with computers, each student with a computer. I don't understand why we have to try to provide them with computers to replace books. If you replace books with a Nook, which is a lot cheaper than computer, I'd like to broach that idea to them. Unfortunately, apparently, it's too late for that. It's a very, very expensive item in the budget, in the school budget this year. It's going to continue to be an expensive item in the school budget as he expands the program of computers for each student, going down, apparently down into the middle school over the years. And I just really wonder if it's a wise idea. That's one problem I have. The other problem is I still like to know what the pension situation is at the school. Apparently not so much for the teachers, but for the auxiliary staff, and to what extent it's funded. And I just don't believe it's funded very well. Not anywhere near how well we funded our pension plans here. So those are my two questions I might want to ask.
Okay. All right, thank you, David. Barbara?
First of all, I'd like to say that I do think the school administration did a good job on the teacher contract, on the NEA contract. I think they actually, after their 9 or 10 or 11 months of negotiation, I think they actually did a pretty reasonable teacher contract. However, the 2 to 3% annual increases to the Chariho school budget are simply unsustainable. We have 300 fewer students than 10 years ago, and enrollment continues to drop, but costs, buildings, maintenance, salaries, and personnel continue to rise. Our towns have effectively level funded their budgets, allowing the entire tax assessment to pay for the Chariho increase. At present, property taxes in Hopkinton and Richmond are almost 8 to 10% of most net family budgets. This is totally unreasonable. In 2010, the Chariho budget for all employee salaries and benefits was $1.4 million below the budgeted amount. In 2011, this same category was $1.7 million below the budgeted amount. We are at present on the same track for 2012. Even with salary increases granted by the new negotiations, the administration will not use $1.4 million or more to accomplish this contract. In 2010 and 2011, the school gave the towns approximately $540,000 back. This return does not account for the over $1.2 million surplus in the employee compensation and benefit line items. We can and should ask for a reduction of $500,000 from this section of the budget. This requested reduction will not affect the salaries and benefits of the entire staff at Chariho. These teachers, administrators, and staff are citizens of our towns as well, and for once I would like to see them vote with the citizens who are getting hammered by the Chariho budget. The teachers will lose nothing. I also believe Chariho should cut the $214,100 for the TEACH program. The teachers have already asked that that money be returned to the students and not into their own pockets. This has been a trial program, and it's time to accept that it hasn't made any difference to the high quality of teaching at Chariho as performance-based compensation. The $714,100 reduction will not affect programs, employees, benefits, maintenance, equipment, property, or debt service. It will not even take us back to this year's general fund budget of 2012-2013. $51,556 million is the maintenance of effort demanded by Rhode Island Department of Education. We are $5,103,000 above that state mandate. Chariho also carries a surplus of 2.5%, which could easily be reduced to 2%. It's their surplus, it's a true surplus, and it is to be used for things like the $20,000 they may lose for the sequester, which is a drop in the bucket compared to their surplus. Without the budget voted down, this will not occur. The budget needs to be voted down so that Chariho can trim its budget and make it more reasonable. We please ask for these, to vote the budget down, ask for these cuts, because Chariho can't make it on its own. The citizens need to speak, and I'm really hoping this time they will. We need to cut at least $700,000 from this budget, and they will still have lost absolutely nothing. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Well said. Ms. Sylvia?
A recent contract proposal that was finally approved by the school committee. I want to point out that the original proposal that came in from the union when they first started this had a tax impact on our Chariho budget for that life of that contract was over $5 million. And nobody knew that, because we know these things now because the school committee had said, and the administration said, that after this was done and buttoned up, they'd make the contracts available, the proposal, the executive session minutes, etc. So all that is available now. So we now know that the reason they said no and took a step back, the school committee, was because we were looking at $5 million. That's more than $5 million that we would have had to absorb in this budget over a few years. And everybody was all upset about the cut in state aid, which was less than that. So that was crazy. So now we know why the school committee took the stance that they did. Well, we can't say all the school committee. There's so many of them that can't even vote on this because they have conflicts. So the few that were left did take a hard stand, or a reasonable stand. And then it ended up costing the fiscal analysis, it was less than $800,000. So they cut it down by more than $4 million. So, remember that, because it wasn't that long ago that there were all these folks that were all upset. The big bad school committee was being so bad, and I bet that many of those teachers didn't know that proposal from their union was going to be $5 million. And those teachers live in the district, many of them. They were going to end up paying the taxes. So some of them, I hope, got a chance to look at those proposals now. That's one thing. The other problem that I've had for many years, and Mr. Buck has, and other counselors, and sitting here too, is the amount of money that they get left over at the end of the year and what they do with it. The amount of money that gets left over every year goes into their fund balance. It's called a surplus. And they will tell you, or you'll, once you ask about it, oh, we'll return it back to you. The problem that I have with it is, first of all, I believe it's overtaxation because there's so much room in their budget for all the sorts of things that can happen, that they've got plenty of nice elbow room, I'll call it. We know how tight our budget has become. We know how tight, I know from watching and reading, in Richmond, it's become extremely tight too. They've got a very, very lean budget. Ours has become that, Richmond's has become that, because they don't have the revenue and they have bills to pay. But the amount of money that gets left over, as we know, they turn back some of it and they keep some of it. They have a percent that they keep, and it might be 1.5 million. It's always 1 point something million. If we're lucky, it's not more than that. One of the problems with that is that if something comes up, and I'm going to use the Hope Valley School as an example, they will say, we need that money, we need a certain amount to hang on to in case something comes up during the year. When something comes up in the year in our budget, we look to our budget to find a place to pay for it. When Chariho deals with it, they don't. They don't look to the voter-approved budget. And when you look at the Hope Valley School, which cost more than $1 million, and that was not anticipated, it was not budgeted, and they had to repoint the bricks. Now, that's an emergency. They did not use their voter-approved budget. They went to their surplus and used that. And in the end, after it was all paid, and everybody was all upset about it, well, sure, it's not fun to have to pay out money like that. But the bottom line is they still ended up with more than $2 million surplus at the end of the year. Bottom line, their budget is still very, very, fat. There's a lot of extra. At the end of the year, they have in their audit, they always have these nice little categories, and they will clearly show that there are categories where they over budget. And it's always instruction. It's instruction support, pension, those are the big ones. Not pension, benefits. And it's just over budgeted. We do the best we can to try to get them to deal with those issues. They have to a certain extent, but I'm not satisfied that they've done it enough, because I don't call it a surplus anymore. I call it a slush fund. I'm not in favor of their budget, even though it happens to be a better year for Hopkinton. I'm not going to vote for it. I'm going to urge everybody to vote no, and because I believe that it's inflated again, and we're just going to end up with a nice big fat surplus at the end of the year.
Okay, thank you, Sylvia. Scott?
Before I end, I'm going to make a motion that the Hopkinton Town Council formally go on record opposed to the Chariho budget. And I'd like to remind my council colleagues that Hopkinton, and as well as other towns and regional school districts, do not have the power that a single-member school district such as Westerly has, because by law they have to go to the town council to approve that budget. The way that regional school districts are set up, they go to the voters directly. And I think it's time, I think it's important for us to take a stand formally and against the budget. First of all, the budget increase is small, and I want to acknowledge the success that our students have had. I know Hope Valley Elementary School has done very well academically in recent years, and there's been positive things. I know the science thing at Ashway School. But the issue is that as a council person, the present budget proposed for Chariho will be around 75% of the tax dollars of the town of Hopkinton, in excess of 18 million. And I also remind my council colleagues that they must remember that the school committee has the power to change 75% of the town taxes in Hopkinton, if it's approved, they have the power to change those line items all around. We don't have that luxury in the town. We can't, spend money that's budgeted for the police department or the public works department. We have to work within line items. But the school department, with 75% of the tax dollars of Hopkinton, they can move it around to their will. I think a lot of my council colleagues have also addressed many issues. First of all, I'd like to congratulate my colleagues for the ones that have spoken so far for their input. Let's see. There has been a decrease in enrollment. Obviously, things aren't cheap as they were years ago, but there was still a decrease in enrollment. I remind you that there is not a maintenance of effort in the town, like the school department has a maintenance of effort. That has to be followed unless there's a decrease in student enrollment or non-recurring expenses. I've already mentioned the flexibility. Even supposedly, there was a rumor that some people are concerned we have 2 schools in Hopkinton too, but I don't know how accurate that is, but I've heard that. I really think that the school department, with everything from their surplus to other factors, they could certainly level fund this budget and go down than the proposed budget. And also, I think it's very important, and I hope people really, and I hope the press really makes a note of this, because one of the problems we have in town government, and the previous town council level funded the current town budget that we're working on, and it was like $75 less. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that. And the town council, the previous town council, and this town council is trying to keep the general government side in check. And yet, we do have always an interest in looking at our staffing needs, and Chariho has a lot of staff. And we often always worry about adding staff in Hopkinton or the cost factors, but Chariho does have a lot of staff. And I'm going to vote against the budget, and I think my colleagues have made some very good points, and I will make a motion, Mr. President.
He has yet to speak.
You want to speak first?
Yeah, I want to just mention a couple quick things, Scott, if you don't mind. Yeah. As far as the budget, I agree with everyone's comments. I look at it a little, well, as far as level funding, if they only level funded, and I looked at 2 particular areas in the Chariho budget, which number 1 was purchase property services. That one's up 23%. It's never been that high. I'm not sure, maybe when Mr. Ritchie's here, we can ask him about that, but between that and the supplies up 6.3%, if those 2 amounts were level funded, our share, which is around 36% of that, of those 2 line items, would be about $129,000 or 13 cents on the mill rate. So we'd actually be lower than where we're at now, and it's just level funded. And supplies are over $1 million, and it's crazy. So that's really what I think the resounding theme seems to be. Either level funded, we're overtaxed. I'm certainly going to vote down the budget, and I'm going to ask them to just try and level fund this budget. And then just level funding it would allow us to actually have taxes that are lower than what we currently have, because we did a good job on our budget, on the municipal side. So, yes, Scott.
Mr. President, I make a motion that the Hopkinton Town Council go on record urging our voters to reject the Chariho Regional School District proposed budget on April 9th, 2013.
Anybody have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, abstain?
Abstain. I don't like telling people how to vote. I believe strongly that it should be voted down. I do not believe in telling anyone how to vote, not even as a council. So I'll abstain.
What was my wording on that?
I understand. I will not do that. I absolutely believe it should be voted down. I am definitely going to vote it down. I will not encourage anyone to do anything but what they feel is correct for themselves. I can't do it.
Yeah, the point's well taken, Barbara.
I just can't do it.
Yeah, we obviously can't tell folks how to vote, but I think the theme at least from what I'm hearing tonight, is that, you know, yeah, you know, we're overburdened. You know, the budget really is rather large, and it could be level funded, reducing the taxes in the town. I think that's kind of what, that's the appeal that we're trying to make to the
Absolutely,
taxpayers.
and having it as something that we all believe in, absolutely.
Right, right.
But a vote, no, not vote, totally not.
Can I ask Lisa, what was the exact wording that I used? 'Cause I think I didn't tell people to vote that way. We recommend.
The town council go on record urging voters to reject the Chariho
Yeah,
Regional
there's
School
nothing
District
wrong with
budget on the equipment.
That's urging, it didn't say recommending, it's urging, no.
Okay.
I think it's
That's fine.
wrong.
Yeah.
Sorry.
The last little thing I wanted to add is I forgot, there was one statistic, if you could put in the minutes, and that was, and Scott had brought up the enrollment, that it was declining. Their enrollment numbers are now within 50 students of what they were in 1983. So that's how things have changed.
I would also like to make one other comment, is to make sure people understand that the general fund balance is not the same thing as the surplus. The general fund balance that you see on the budget does not include the surplus. That's a whole separate piece of money that has no relationship to these line items. There is nothing here that says it's a surplus before you get to general fund balance.
Okay.
And it's a, you know, $1.5 million or something.
Okay.
Completely separate number.
All right, thanks, folks. We all set there? Okay. Third item under new business is to discuss and consider adopting a resolution opposing contract continuation legislation, specifically proposed legislative bills S-365, S-777, and H-5699, and any similar bills which would mandate that expired teacher, police officer, firefighter, or municipal contracts must continue under existing terms and conditions. Okay.
Bill, what's it?
Yes, sir. See you, Tom.
Good night.
Yes.
Good night.
Hi, Tom.
Thank you. On Friday, March 15th, I received correspondence from Dan Beardsley, who's the Executive Director of the Rhode Island League of Cities and Towns, and he was requesting all city and town councils to consider adopting a resolution opposing contract continuation legislation, specifically Rhode Island General Assembly Bills S-365, S-777, and H-5699, and any similar bills which would mandate that expired teacher, police officer, firefighter, or municipal employee contracts continue on their existing terms and conditions. Several other communities in the state passed similar resolutions, and I drafted a proposed resolution for the town of Hopkinton and attached to it the three proposed legislative bills to which this resolution refers to.
Okay, thanks, Bill. Appreciate it. Scott, any comments, questions?
I think what's in a nutshell with all these type of things is that when you go before a body, whether it's an arbitrator or whatever, you expect that you would get a fair hearing, but it seems that a lot of these things are so labor-oriented or slanted that it could create, number one, a financial burden for the cities and towns. And more than likely, labor would have a decided advantage over the municipality and or the school district. So there's a financial impact because labor costs are the biggest component of any budget.
Right. Thanks, Scott. Sylvia, any comments, questions?
The resolution on the second page after your memo, Bill, is this something that you wrote or did Lisa? Did this come out of your office or the clerk's office?
This came out of my office.
I like it. It was very well done. There was just one minor typo, which I let you know after, but I think it's great, and I'd like to move that we adopt this resolution, which we're going to need to read tonight.
You have to read the whole thing?
Well, no, we should read it out loud so people will know what we're talking about. I'm talking about the
Yeah,
resolution.
the resolution, one page.
The one-page resolution, yeah.
No, not this one.
But I'm moving that we adopt it.
Second.
Okay. Okay, motion's made and seconded. Okay, any further discussion, Barbara?
I am absolutely in agreement with Mr. McGarry and Mr. Beardsley from the Rhode Island League of Cities and Towns that it should be not done.
Okay. David?
I'm opposed to this. These are special interest bills. They continue to tie the hands of municipalities to control their own future, and I'm totally opposed to this kind of nonsense.
Yeah.
Well said.
With emphasis word on nonsense.
For me, basically, it's binding arbitration. You know, when a contract expires, it expires. You know, it doesn't continue under the existing terms and conditions. So that, you know, I obviously agree with this resolution, and we'll support it for sure.
And
So-
especially since the economics don't continue just because the contract does.
Right,
It has
exactly.
nothing to do with the real world.
All right, I'm going to have to read it. I'll read fast.
Okay.
All right, this is the resolution that we're adopting, I hope. Well, it looks like we're going to. Whereas current state law does not provide for mandatory continuation of an existing teacher, police officer, firefighter, or municipal employee collective bargaining agreement, and whereas a Superior Court justice recently ruled that state statute defining when a contract ends obviates any clause agreed to allowing for a continuation of a public employee contract. And whereas school districts and cities and towns have seen a calamitous reduction of state aid, and whereas there exists a $102 million revenue expenditure gap in the fiscal year 2014 budget, and cities and towns have lost over $185 million general revenue sharing and auto excise reimbursements, and whereas taxpayers are already burdened by some of the highest property taxes nationally, and whereas school districts and cities and towns must comply with RIGL 4452 that caps the property tax levy for fiscal year 2013 at 4%, and whereas according to Rhode Island General Law 1629D, the school committee of each, in parentheses, or quotations, the school committee of each school district shall be responsible for maintaining a school budget which does not result in a debt. And whereas school committees are required to adhere to the Rhode Island Department of Education's Basic Education Plan, teacher evaluation regulations, and other RIDE rules and regulations. And whereas contract continuation would serve as a disincentive for local government unions to bargain in good faith and allow existing employee wages and benefits to continue unchanged indefinitely, forcing districts to possibly violate state-mandated property tax caps and RIDE's rules and regulations. And now therefore be it resolved that the Hopkinton Town Council respectfully requests the Rhode Island General Assembly oppose S365, S777, and H5699, which would mandate that expired teacher, police officer, firefighter, or municipal employee contracts must continue at the existing terms and conditions. And now therefore be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to every Rhode Island municipality, town representatives on the Chariho School Committee, and the superintendent, school, state senator, and state reps, and the governor.
Okay.
Okay.
So was a motion made?
Yes, and second.
Oh, second, okay. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay. Item 4 under new business is to discuss and consider adopting a resolution opposing mandatory binding arbitration legislation, specifically proposed legislative bills S3648, H5340, H5389, and any similar bills which would grant public school teachers the right to binding arbitration on all contractual issues, including those that involve the expenditure of money. Bill, do you have any comments on this one as well?
Just very briefly, it's basically the same as the first resolution. It emanated out of the Rhode Island League of Cities and Towns, and instead of continued existence of the contract, this relates specifically to binding arbitration on contractual issues.
Okay.
I move that we adopt this resolution.
Second.
Okay. Motion's made second. Any discussion? Start over on David.
Same comment.
I'm with him.
Ditto.
Ditto.
I'm with him. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, like I said, a contract expires, it expires. It shouldn't continue under the contract terms and conditions. So, Sylvia, any comments? Or?
No, I won't read, all I'll read, but basically the whereas are very similar to what we just read, but all I will add is this resolution is now therefore be it resolved that the Hopkinton, let's see, this is where I should start. The proposed, the last two whereas are a little bit different. Whereas mandatory binding arbitration would deprive local elected officials the ability to control the biggest component of local budgets, and whereas the proposed mandatory binding arbitration legislation being advanced by their proponents, S364, H5340, and H5389, does not take into account student welfare, confirmation with existing property tax caps, recognition of management responsibilities, the cost of implementing the basic education program, and other unfunded mandates.
Okay.
So those are basically what was different from the other.
Okay, motion's made and second, okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay,
Frank?
Yes.
We're gonna change that word in that, by the way, from gas to gap.
yeah, what page is that?
Well, there were a couple of,
Yeah, typos.
there's like three of them. I'm going to talk to Bill about
Okay,
it
good,
after.
good.
I got that one too, yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Next on the, under new business is discuss and consider holding the annual financial town assembly in the town hall council chambers rather than a local elementary school. Now, this seems to make sense.
Yes. Quite agree with my memo.
Okay. Now, we never seem to have more than 75 people
Right.
attend,
Well, like 12 or less.
so it makes sense to have it here. I guess I'll start with, to my right, Scott, I guess if you have any questions.
You know, I think that considering past turnout, it does make sense, but then you always have the scenario that, and I don't assume it will happen this year, that usually if there's a big tax increase, you usually get a lot of people out, but I would assume that this year that would be the case.
Okay, thanks, Scott. Sylvia?
Yeah, and, you know, the assembly's changed. They don't vote. They usually come if there's an issue that they think they want us to change, whether it's to decrease something or to increase something, but sometimes they do come just because they're new in town and they want to ask a few questions. So you don't get folks like we used to. So it's just, they don't vote, so it's usually more informational. So it makes perfect sense to have it here.
I just want to thank Lisa for the suggestion. It was quite efficacious.
Okay. David?
It was a great idea. We're midway between the two villages.
Yep.
And, so nobody can complain, oh, I've got to go all the way up to Hope Valley or all the way down to Ashaway. So cut that excuse out. So no, I think it's a fine idea.
And I think too, and I asked Lisa, because I was curious, you know, do they charge us, the school? I guess they don't charge us any money, but I'm thinking, I wonder if they have to actually have a janitor on
They do,
staff.
yes.
Okay,
Oh,
so
they
that-
have to set up, they
Okay, so-
they
So
set
they pay
everything
for
up.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I assume so. Okay, so that's good. So either way, I guess
It'll be
it's,
relief.
We already paid for them.
so, anyway, yeah, so let's have a motion, I guess, to,
I move that the annual financial town assembly for 2013 be held in the town council chambers.
Second.
okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Number 6 on the new business is,
Can I ask a question?
Yes,
If you
Lisa.
limited it to 2013, is this something that should come before you on an annual basis?
That's a good question, because I don't think I think it was a courtesy as much as anything to bring it before the council. I think Bill really has the authority to make the determination about where it's held, because the charter doesn't specify where. So I think, there's no reason why not to leave it as a kind of a year-to-year thing.
We can try it this year and then see what
Yeah,
happens.
why
We'll
not
add
do that?
that to our list.
A year-to-year thing.
How do you feel, Bill?
To the
on that?
budget,
Is that fine, year to year? We'll, as it comes up, we'll deal with it?
Whatever the council wants to do is fine, sure.
Thanks. Okay, thank you. Okay. Number 6 under new business is discuss and consider scheduling a special town council meeting on or before May 15th, 2013 to approve the budget. Okay.
What date do you want?
Let's
Yeah,
see,
that's
Lisa.
too bad. Our council meetings are the 6th and the 20th.
Hmm.
So,
Can do it, I guess, before the 6th.
If the charter ever gets changed, that's something that should be considered.
Coincide? Right.
can it be done on May 6th? Or is that?
No.
No,
Has to
'cause
be
that-
after the FDI.
I have to be after.
Right, and
okay.
that's on Tuesday. Gotcha.
Tuesday, 7th.
That's on the 7th, okay. Well, then we'll just have to have a special, well, I guess the 13th then. That's our normal meeting night. The 13th in the middle.
13th.
May 13th?
Yeah.
Okay with me?
Okay.
Okay. That seem okay, Lisa?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so we've got May 13th, 2013.
We need to make a motion.
What
Yes,
time? Can we do it at
7?
6:30? Well, can we do it at 6:30?
I don't know, we
doing one
usually do
thing.
things at 7. It'll certainly be a quick and easy thing to do.
Yeah.
6:30 for everybody? Does it matter?
Doesn't matter to me.
I'm retired.
Okay, all right.
6:30 start.
6:30. Okay, do we have a motion for that, or? Do we need a motion?
I think it's a consensus.
Okay. Consensus, May 13th, 2013, at 6:30 for the special town council meeting on the, to approve the budget. Okay. Next on the agenda is the second public forum. Anyone out there wishing to speak? Chief Palmer?
Oh, don't disturb him, he was busy. He's like, what?
You're our only guy left,
Thought you were texting.
only body Nick. Actually,
He's texting Pat.
Oh, I see.
Nope, swear to God.
actually, if I can just, if you guys can give me just 1 second here, I wanted to go back to the Chariho about our signs. I know we've got new signs to put out for the vote on April 9th. I guess, do we need to consider where to put those, I guess, or what are your thoughts, Lisa, on that?
Well, I know you've mentioned in the past the 2 libraries, fire districts,
Mhm.
and then 2 other locations, what you're choosing between.
Town hall?
Well, they will be here.
Oh, you already have one,
We'll
okay.
some already
All right.
here. so-
Crandall House?
Crandall House.
Crandall
Crandall
House.
House? Okay, we need one more spot.
How
There
about-
was, oh, go ahead.
How about in downtown Hope Valley near West Bakery?
Well, the
That's
fire station.
The fire
we're gonna-
station, we're gonna have that, yeah, we're gonna have that.
We're gonna ask them if it's okay.
Crandall House Crandall is so big, it could be in the corner of 216.
You know,
and
the thing,
further up.
one part of town that I think
That's
is...
a good idea. Barbara just came up with a good one.
It's close, the Crandall field is so long, is to do something at 216,
Yeah.
and then also all the way up on the other side of Crandall.
So that'll take
Because
care
it takes care of two big roads.
I was going to suggest Rockville. I know it's a small village, but there's a lot of people in that section that probably, they probably maybe don't go by Hope Valley every day. I know a lot of people in Rockville do, but that's a village that's geographically remote from the rest of the town.
Where can we put it, though?
How many signs do we have?
We have 6.
6 new ones, right?
New ones.
Yeah.
And
How
then
about
I
up
have
near the
other-
post office?
Well,
Yeah.
how many signs have we allocated so far?
2 libraries, 2 fire stations, Crandall.
And 2 at Crandall.
2 at Crandall for
That's
the,
6.
for the 2 big roads, there's 216 and Route 3.
We're going to use one of the old signs, if you want to go to Rockville.
The problem
have-
with the old signs, it says, vote here.
Right,
Oh, that's
right.
Yeah, we don't want that.
I think we've got it covered.
We'll
I mean,
we'll
you
confuse
stick
it.
some at the Rockville
Can
Post
we-
Office, that's off the beaten path.
We also asked about using One Call Now, just to tell people that the vote, to remember the vote and come out and vote.
We already take the
Bill's
message.
already got it.
It's automatically scheduled to go
Perfect.
on the 8th.
He
at
doesn't
6
miss a
o'clock.
thing.
That's right.
Perfect.
Very
Thank
well
you.
done.
Perfect.
Good
Excellent. I
tidbit.
mean, this way, we're doing the best we can to get people out. It's the best we can do.
So that's good news. All right, so we're gonna skip Rockville and do 2 at Crandall, 1 at
One at
216.
the two big roads.
Okay.
Okay, that was my only addition to that item. I guess, if no one has anything else, I guess I'd like to, Scott, you want to make a motion to adjourn?
Yes, I did talk to the council president. We're going to adjourn in memory of 4 people. He does want to talk about the first person. I move that we adjourn. Why don't I just make the list, and then before we have a second, you can comment on the person.
Well, we can make the second, and then he can comment, because it's how you have discussion.
Okay. I make a motion the Hopkinton Town Council meeting adjourned in memory of Charles Austin, Albina Rude, Maurice Young, and Helen DeShantis.
Second.
Okay.
Did you hold on 1 minute, Maurice Young?
Yeah, I got it.
Charles
Yeah.
Austin.
I've got the first 3, Charles Austin,
Yeah.
Albina Rude,
I wrote
Maurice
it down.
Young, and,
Helen DeShantis. I wrote that thing down right here.
thank you.
I just wanted to adjourn in memory of Charles Austin. He's a Hope Valley resident that died last week on the job, and he left two small kids, 2 and 4. And I was at the wake at Avery's. It took me 2.5 hours to get in the building, and it was very, very sad. And anyway, that was it.
I would like to comment, Albina Rood was born in Connecticut and lived for many decades on Laurel Street in Ashway. Her son's business, RPE, disposing of waste, is very well known in the community, and I've known her since I was really a small child. Maurice Young, for many years, was employed at the Westerly Sun. He was involved in Hopkinton years ago before he moved to Westerly. He ran for town council. He also ran for town council in Westerly, very involved in the community. And Helen DeShantis and my cousin lived together in North Stonington. Both of them were been very kind to my mother. She just died at the age of 68, and I like to remember her because she's a very kind and caring person. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.